So I mentioned the Joseph stepfather complex, and this is what I believe is happening on. This is an attack on private property, and I'm guessing it has something to do with there are some titles on land to do with the United States that were established by the British Empire, and to constantly kind of position themselves away from those historic titles, they have to create this entire fictional universe, of which that all lies, which is like perpetual destruction of the family, because the families are what holds. Hang on, I'll pause this. This is a big catastrophe going on right now. It's just craziness in Los Angeles, the kind of headquarters of the Disneyland cult. Because, of course, at Disneyland, Walt Disney had built a castle that was fake, and then he continued to kind of tell everyone that everyone's a princess and that, you know, everyone has a car. And then everyone can come and visit his castle, and they can do odd things in dark corners of that castle. It's all a bit ridiculous, isn't it? It's the attempt by a kind of global collection of tyrants to position like a false entity as an overseer. And it's this moral entity of the digital Christ. It's usually like seen in Disney movies as this character like of the conscience or whatever. But you're sitting in the bones of absolute horror. Christ was killed. He didn't actually enact change on the world. We just follow his example. You can't create a digital Christ. And this is a clear attempt, because Charles in the Church of England and in England where the United States comes from, he was kind of he's the representative that was established by Henry VIII. Perhaps a relative of mine, perhaps not. I'd like to actually dig a bit further and find out whether the kind of family myth was true, but it's amazing what you can get done when you create these fictional worlds. This is, if we get to, you know, the massive criticisms of the Bible and distributing the Bible in different languages and things like that, this is what they were worried about. Now, the newspaper that Piers Morgan and Rupert Murdoch worship, that's the lowest form, really, of what started with the Gutenberg Revolution and the Protestant Revolution. It's all to do with distribution of written word. And now we're in a battle where I'm sitting here daily talking. I'm actually doing this in real life. I'm actually, you know, manipulating this small dragon's head that does look quite cool, while being in the real world. And I just happen to be using a camera on a phone, and I happen to be distributing it on the internet. But that's what you're now doing. You're not printing. There's no head start that you have anymore, and it's exposing the historic things that you've done. Because like any kingdom or like any empire, you know, they fall. And this is a nasty one. And this is like this situation here where people in California, this is a battle between Walt Disney and Rupert Murdoch. There's no doubt in my mind. If everyone had their own little patch of land, which I have thanks to my father's lifetime commitment, then they could, plant a tree or something, or plant a little garden, and they could play soccer or football or whatever you call it, or a game of backyard cricket. They wouldn't have to be kind of worshipping this false media narrative that we're now unable to ignore, aren't we? Yeah. Yeah, he said yes. He's got some pretty nasty teeth on him, this little fella. I think he's a character on a movie called The Never-Ending Story. I haven't actually seen it because he used to freak me out when I was a kid. I didn't like puppets. So it's very strange to me now that I'm using a puppet to make this point. This isn't a real dragon. This is a metaphor. The real dragon is Walt Disney's Disney Empire and the Murdoch Empire that are now, Disney's at least, is now owned and bet upon by the ravenous mob to inevitably perpetuate global digital-led genocide. And then Murdoch's hanging in there at 94, I think I saw it, with his children basically trying to turn off his life support so they can all make good on the deals they've done. Well, I think that's crazy. You know what I mean? Never in a million years. I love my son, but I don't want him anywhere near what I've done until he proves himself. And if I actively tried to prevent that in court and then they won, it's like, what is going on? Because these families don't have the same type of ceremonial weight that is held by the royal family. And it's clear that all these people are in opposition to the monarchies. Walt Disney built a castle and never-endingly talked about princesses. And Rupert Murdoch built an empire out of paper. You know what I mean? But there's no weight. Rupert Murdoch doesn't present himself. It's the ultimate scam. It's like, oh yes, I have all the virtuousness of a king. I have all the power of a king, but none of the weight of the responsibility. I don't actually make oaths stating this. I just participate in the destruction of the castle or the idolatration or the creation of false castles. And I think this misses the whole point. I think once we realise that, the dragons we seek are nothing more than lifeless, dead, artificial plastic toys, then we can grab them by the tail, a little bit like Steve Irwin, and we can, dispatch them. You know what I mean? And then we find out as we go to make the killing blow, there is nothing to kill. It was never alive to begin with. We've all just been running from a little plastic toy and terrified of something that just isn't real. You can build a pointy-shaped building and constantly talk about princesses, but I think that misses the point entirely of what the structure you're in criticism of is. You are appeasing everyone's desire and failing to adequately draw a picture of the reality of that. The reality of King Charles, or any king in history, is not one to be admired. It's not admired, yes, not one to be sought out. And that creates the ultimate thing of the idea of wanting to be a princess. It's that's not what women want. Trust me, I've known enough of them that none of them actually want that. That job is hell. That's why I think I'm so drawn to Catherine. I think she knows now and she's still there. It's an amazingly admirable thing to do. Whereas the media has just created these false princes like Madonna. Nothing wrong with Madonna. She's amazing. She doesn't claim to be a princess. She's a creation and she lives that life. When it's known that these figures are that and that this other structure is completely different, it's wonderful. But when we get blurred, when the appealing and the pandering to the mob becomes, religious, then what else would you expect? But this is two mobs. This is the Fox versus Disney, and Channel 9, the scummiest channel so far in Australia to emerge in this paradigm. The rest kind of know what's going on. Channel 9's just diving straight in there. I want to know who's in control of Channel 9 at the moment, because, yeah. Look at this. That's Fox versus Disney on the streets of San Francisco or LA. But where's Murdoch and where's Walt Disney? They don't exist. Murdoch's in hospital probably, or is very ill. This is what happens when creations are very clever. Walt Disney, amazing person, amazing. He revolutionised storytelling. Okay, he has flaws when his legacy is continued past his death and kind of commercialised and created. And the same with Murdoch. Murdoch has done wonderful things across the world. I'm not trying to condemn or claim his life wasn't well lived and he hasn't been beneficial. I'm claiming that once their legacies are continued on in the form of their creations, it becomes really, really gross. We need kings back. We need a lot of them, and we need to end this distribution nightmare before every street in every part of the world is overcome by this battle of now robotic entities with basically corpses in their closets.